Hello.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 5th session of Tuesday Talks. I'm Harsh from Fun Academy.
And I'm Sanna from Fun Academy as well.
And we're joining to you today after our Easter break. So we hope you all had a wonderful Easter. And we are coming to you live from our partner kindergarten in Vantaa in Finland. So let's talk about today's topic, which is what are life skills and how can we connect life skills to the learning environment. So to get started, I'm going to switch the camera and then let's first take a closer look at what life skills are.
So a quick recap about the life skills. We have identified 7 particular life skills that we look at when we design the environment and when we look at what we're going to study and explore together with the children. And now that we're talking about the life skills and the environment, it's such a big, huge, broad topic that we want to maybe focus on a couple of examples only today to get us started understanding how the connection of life skills and the environment actually happens.
Yeah, and before we get started, what exactly are life skills in a nutshell? Even though it's a broad topic.
Skills, in a nutshell, are things and skills that we want our children to master before they go to school. Specifically here in Finland, these are life skills that we emphasize in our primary education, but these life skills are skills that we would want any child to develop growing up and studying and exploring the world. They get them ready for many kinds of different things, as we will be learning when we talk about these life skills in more depth.
Okay, and we hear a lot about soft skills and 21st century skills. Are life skills perhaps the same or are they any different?
Life skills are very closely connected to 21st century skills. Life skills is just a maybe better way to name them. It's easier for us to understand how they have anything to do with our life when we use the term life skills, or future skills for that matter. They're not just connected to a specific century. They are skills that we all human beings need.
And also, we just mentioned that there are many skills, but we have selected these particular skills to be part of the fun learning philosophy and to promote for every child. And is there any significance in these set of skills, or why we chose them?
This is a broad set of skills under which we can then place and list the curricular objectives of any country or any state or any environment, any community, any school or any classroom. And of course that work always needs to be done. We need to be looking at what are the activities and what are the curricular, maybe knowledge items that we would place under these life skills so that we develop these skills or help the children develop these skills while they study in our learning environment.
Okay, and what is the connection between life skills and the learning environment?
That's interesting. We believe that the connection can be very strong or it can be non-existent. We definitely need to be looking at it and trying to understand how to connect the development of life skills. How do we inspire children to learn certain skills in an environment so that it's not pushing them, but it's actually inspiring the children and helping them to be active participants in learning these skills in their environment. So it does require some work, but it definitely can be done, and we have seen like amazing environments that really do support these life skills when we start being like keen observants of those environments.
Okay, so is it fair to say that when prepared right, the learning environment can be the ultimate tool in connecting life skills to everyday learning?
Well, the teacher is the ultimate person designing the tools and the environment, and we absolutely believe that the environment can be a very strong educational tool, and it can become an assistant teacher if the teacher prepares it well together with her team or with in connection with the curriculum, for example. Yes.
Okay, so we have quite a few lights in this room and some shadows. So okay. I hope our viewers will put up with us. But we're going to focus today on a couple of skills.
Yeah, I think we should maybe start with one of the skills that is often questioned and we are asked about, and that would be the technology and information media set of skills, like how can those be implemented in an early childhood setting, and should they be? Like what kind of role does technology and digital potentially have with young children? So that's one of the skills that we will be looking at. And as you will be hearing, many of the things that we discuss now and the examples that we show are connected to other life skills as well, but we can start with the tech skill in this first section.
Okay, so then perhaps we should focus on the digital corner in our kindergarten, where we have this digital display, which is usually used by the little ones to connect with a peer kindergarten, among other things.
Yes, so here in this corner of our library and music room, so we call it a library and music room, and that's what this room is mainly for. So it's for reading, telling stories, making music, and listening to sounds, so getting our senses ready for hearing experiences as well. But this is a room that is very well fitted for the use of technology at a very age-appropriate level. So what we do here is we connect our children in this kindergarten with our partner kindergartens and their children in other countries, for example, Singapore and China, from which our next examples will be. And why we don't have the children live in this session is due to the fact that, okay, the Finnish children are right now outside doing outdoor learning activities, and our partner kindergarten in China, well, the time zone difference makes it quite difficult, so I think they're getting ready for for a good night's sleep at the moment. So when we connect with China, we do that Finnish time in the mornings. And now, of course, it's afternoon here.
And when the kids, when the children connect, of course, we can think of some of the skills that they can develop. They learn about technology,
Yes.
and then they learn about collaboration. What about in terms of the curriculum? So how does these life skills that they're learning connect to the curriculum?
That again depends on the curriculum that we have in use in like any given place. So in China we have the Chinese curriculum that is then supported by the Fun Learning Life Skill set. And in Finland we have our Finnish curriculum, and we also at Fun Academy and under Fun Learning we push the development of life skills strongly into the curricular objectives. So that's something that we're doing on both sides. And then it's up to the teachers to discuss what curricular objectives do they want to use when they're connecting these children. So what we've been doing is talking about science, doing a science project between the Singaporean children and the children in Finland. And we have also been looking at the differences in mealtime, or differences in what we consume in kindergarten. What is our lunch made up of? So we've been comparing meals, diving more deeply into the everyday culture with the Chinese kindergarten. So it depends on what the teachers decide. And I think next week what we will be doing is looking at music and how does music play a role in these different kindergartens. So the children will be using music as a common language, hopefully, in the future sessions. So teachers decide what is the curricular objective, what is the theme of the project that works on both sides, and then when we connect the children, that's how we start. But what's super interesting is that the context is there. So we as adults facilitate a specific context that is connected to the curricular aims that we have. But in the name of child participation, we very carefully listen to what the children have to say and what kind of things are they paying attention to. And then we can just like very quickly switch the focus of the discussion based on what the children are now interested in. One example is from our discussion between Finland and Singapore once, when the children were talking about a science project that they were doing. They were planting seeds that had been up in the space station, International Space Station, and they were comparing the growth of those seeds to seeds that had not been up in the International Space Station to figure out whether the growth has any differences. And they're doing this on both sides, in both different countries. And then the project is to work on scientific methodology, trying to figure out how to compare when we're living in different countries. So the children are discussing whether they should be comparing the length of the growth, or should they be taking pictures and looking at how the leaves develop, or should they be using an Excel or photographs or drawings. So they're figuring out how to document the differences that they're observing in this within this science project. So this is what we're kind of we have planned for them to do. But then suddenly the children in Singapore start talking about a totally different thing. They say that we have a beautiful blue cake, and this cake came from this boy's mom because it's his last day today in kindergarten. And then the Finnish children start wondering when they see the cake on the screen there during this video conference. Then the Finnish children start wondering, like, why can you have cake in the morning for breakfast? And the Singaporean kids, of course, are baffled, like, it's not morning, it's afternoon here. And then they suddenly understand that there's a time difference, and what does that mean? And that immediately, this context, this interest, brings us to looking at the map and the globe. Where are we, and what does the time difference means? So child participation, listening to the child, brings us to a totally different topic, and that's fine. And this is something that we really like to emphasize, that we should be able to switch to something that is super interesting for the children, because that's when they're exploring actively something, and they, in this context, have changed the subject and topic. Or when we were talking with our Chinese friends in Beijing via a video conference, they were talking about the different drinks that they have for breakfast and snack. And the Finnish children were quite curious about red bean water that they had never heard of, and I hadn't either. So then we wanted to find out, what does that taste like? And even though the actual topic was something totally different, then we dived into different tastes and different flavors and decided to talk about that next time, comparing what do different tastes, what are they about, and why do people have, even in kindergarten school, a different kind of snack after their nap, for example. So using the context to connect the curricular objectives that might have switched, but in name of child participation and interest and motivation, we need to be quite flexible. And we know that we will continue the science project maybe next time.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think this is a great example of course you can do a science project in your own class or by yourself.
Yep.
But when you make use of the amazing technology we have in a meaningful way, for example, you can develop multiple life skills at the same time.
Yes.
And also it's interesting for children contextually, because they're looking at someone in a different time zone doing the same thing, so it brings so much more impact.
Yes, and I think what questions that we need to be asking ourselves as educators when we think about life skills is, okay, what other life skills were we potentially developing, or what other life skills can we then pull out of this discussion when we plan our next activity, or inspiration for the next activity with the children. So here we use the technology for collaboration, we used it for context and inspiration. And then we need to plan and understand, okay, what can we be doing potentially next? And one thing that, well, in the China example, the children were ideally first, based on our planning, looking at what does the environment look like. And then one thing that was noticeable was that here in Finland, the children in many kindergartens have quite high chairs when they eat their meal. So they're like, they climb up to a high chair and eat at a higher table, due to maybe the ergonomy of an adult. And there in China, the children had lower stools and their tables were much lower, and that was interesting. So chairs and furniture was one thing that we were wanting to look at and discuss with the children. And since that was already planned, that's maybe one example that we can be looking at when we go further into how do we connect context and life skills, creativity and scientific thinking into a learning environment.
Yes, and moving on from the technology corner, we have an activity over here.
Yeah, so this is a very non-digital activity here. So what we use is pictures that have been cut out of magazines, and these pictures are, in many cases, in the children's use just for inspiration, for discussion, or when we're looking at younger children, also naming things. Also when we have a bilingual or more multi-linguistic environment, using the same images to learn the different vocabulary in different languages is also one point of having these types of learning products in an environment. But what we're doing in this particular case is helping the children comparison being one thing that's super interesting in scientific thinking, and of course learning about shapes and comparing in general. And as chairs seem to be the topic here, we can be looking at a very small chair and thinking about this small chair and who this small chair is meant for, and then helping the child identify other chairs. What makes a chair? How is a chair different from so we have 3 brown chairs. Average like kindergarten and preschool activity, connected to science, but also connected to everyday life and care of self and like other things that are part of our everyday life. Then we easily questions like, is a toilet seat a chair, or what is it? And then when we talk about the toilet seat, then we can get the children interested in connecting other things to a specific room, in this case the bathroom and the restroom, and what kind of items do we have there and what do they mean. And then we're suddenly again talking about practical life and hanging our wash to dry, and what am I as a small child capable of doing. So connecting something that we have found in one activity and then listening to the child and creating the next activity quickly with the pictures that we have, and then discussing the concept of a room and what is in a specific room. And again, what the children pretty easily jump to is them wanting to maybe make a little doll's house room, or looking at furniture for their dolls and their little fluffy animals, and then we jump to creativity and designing our own furniture and constructing our own furniture. So it's like a path of different kinds of things that we can be planning when we listen to the children, observe them, hear them, and then bring something new to inspire them. And then again connect this to the life skills of creativity and critical thinking, which of course comes from our capability of observing the differences and vocalizing the differences and conducting a conversation about those differences. And we already started from the fact that we're helping the children to actually document their scientific findings. So connecting all these together, we're under quite many of these life skills that we want these children to be developing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a fantastic example, or these are some of fantastic examples of how you don't have to have a lot of resources, or if you don't have a lot of resources, that's still fine. You can use sort of magazines you can find, just things that you can borrow from a supermarket that they want to throw away, and cut them up, set them in the environment, and the children are suddenly taking a tour around the world and looking at different types of furniture, all from the same room.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
And then if we walk a little further in this music and library environment, maybe the library part of this environment is interesting, specifically today, as today is in Finland Kirjan ja ruusun päivä, which means that today is World Book Day, but in Finland we celebrate it in form of roses and books. So happy World Book Day to everyone, and let's hope that every day is a book day for everyone in education. And of course we love this beautiful, old-fashioned but terrific format of storytelling, and we want to help the children be inspired to read more in length. Coming from the first example of how to use technology in a classroom, we then come to a very traditional format that we still believe has a strong place, especially when we want the people to be reading in length, which does not so much happen in the technology and digital life, where we're interrupted with many different kinds of things during a reading session. But the library corner and setting is here built and constructed to help the children become book lovers. So books are definitely have a big role in this environment. And connecting what we have in a book to, again, some inspirational materials that can be cutouts from papers, talking about, as it is spring now here in Finland, what does that mean, taking care of our garden, planting seeds, what can we then find from our gardens, and what are our beautiful forests really about. And then we get back to the, again, in a like circular way, to the concept of Earth and the maps and all the things that we were discussing when we started this tour in this library and music section. So connecting these things and bringing context to the children without underlying it too much, so we don't need to be informing them about how well all these designed activities are connected, but we as educators know and understand how this type of a phenomenon-based educational setting can be set up in very simple ways when we connect our curricular objectives to life skills, and again to what we can find in our surroundings to support the learning of the children.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all these examples we spoke about learning about the world, learning to compare and contrast, and learning about different objects in different rooms, and again here about books and about gardening, we can actually learn these sitting in one place. Yes. Off of a workbook by just coloring and filling things in. But I think the difference is when you set up the learning environment and you're engaging with your peers who's in the same class and who are thousands of miles away, the context is so much more rich and the skills you can develop are so much more diverse.
Yes, and one thing that we really want to look at is how to use a classroom and an environment in a way that caters for different kinds of smaller groups, pairs, one child, or a larger group. For example, what we have seen now is arranged in a way that we can have a couple of children working via the Skype connection with children in another country. There can be a few children looking at the map and studying those books that are set up in that part of this classroom. And then we have other children who are working on vocalizing the pictures that they see about the chairs and making comparisons. And very close by, another child can be noticing that we also have pillows of different sizes. So then they start looking at what is small and what is medium size and what is really, really big, with totally different items that they find in the environment. So we have 3 different groups of children working there, and they are here with the books and roses. Discussing what we want to do in our gardens, which is absolutely very strong learning environment when so designed to be, or when the children are allowed to learn outdoors.
Yeah, and perhaps one more thing is that this books and roses for us is for today. Tomorrow we will have something different.
Exactly.
And that's the wonderful thing about the environment. You can change it and it's continuously evolving.
Yes. This setup, of course, will be something totally different tomorrow, but also this connection culturally and talking with people in different cultures allows us to learn about interesting festivities and celebrations that we have in different parts of the world. So a book and rose activity might be inspiring for someone who does not have that activity as part of their educational setup. So maybe organize like Finnish-inspired reading and gardening workshop and talking about the Finnish education and how that's connected to reading, for example. Like that kind of inspiration is also interesting. So looking at the different celebrations all around the world and bringing those into our own environments is also part of what digital and technology and communication can bring to us in an early childhood setting as well as in our own adult lives.
Wonderful. So the camera and bring it back to the both of us. So we've had a lot of questions about what life skills are and how to integrate life skills into the classroom and for some practical tips. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that we can in the weeks to come continue to talk more in detail about other different life skills, but mainly we hope that the takeaway here is you can use the environment you have at the moment.
Yes.
And be creative with the things that you all have, and start integrating life skills to the everyday curriculum. Yes, absolutely. So then, we thank you for tuning in today, and we hope to see you next week. Please like and follow our Facebook page, and also hop over to our Fun Learning Facebook group, where we will upload some inspiring pictures, like still images for